I'm just going to get right to the poems. The first poem is called Tree Stand. What's he thinking about alone up there after climbing the rickety ladder from the woodlot's leaf-littered floor to his father's stand? Strapped in the bench seat with his back pressed against oak trunk, dressed head to toe in camo, crossbow in his lap, buck knife strung from his belt, wearing oversized boots and stripes of lamp black smudged under his clear blue eyes, as when he played center for the town team. Every inning, hustling back out to the bare spot he'd kicked free of turf, pounding his glove after making the catch, that easy loping run the girls in the stands came to watch, but never sure on the drive home if he really liked the game. Now, his first teenage winter, stuck in his seat for hours with all that emptiness around him, where most days, he'll tell you, nothing happens. Always the cold wait for sunset, that sharp whistle, then the steady amber beam, his father's light coming at him from deep among the trees. The next poem is Pasture Ponds. The only thing you need to know here is Massey Ferg is just an abbreviation for a Massey Ferguson tractor, and Hyla crucifer, the frog that I mentioned at the end, is the spring peeper. The Pasture Ponds. You know the spot, that sharp left off the county road to Hope that passes the roadside shrine her classmates built to our youngest. The blank stones that mark the old Presbyterian graveyard. Then on past the last rusted knob of safety rail, where a graveled lane cuts through swampy woods. The pair of drake mallard decoys Hubert anchored to the bottom, riding out every weather on the big pond. The splotch of white on their sides that catches in our high beams as we round the curve. The twiggy rack of alder and sumac clipping the side views as we pass through streaks of moonlight, burnishing the shields on the skeleton runes of our friend's red Massey Ferg. A place we've gone to many times, trying to nudge the season ahead. We crack open the side windows, crank the heater up a couple notches, sit with the lights clicked shut, side by side in the front seat, wait for the first callers crawled free from March mud. The Hyla crucifer, no bigger than a fingertip, noted in our dog-eared Petersons for shrill voices that rise, then fall, and those dark little crosses they carry on their backs. Next poem is Scrapple. I don't know if everyone else is familiar with it. The best description of it's a very popular Pennsylvania Dutch breakfast food in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, New York, maybe this local area. This is kind of a recipe of how to make it. Scrapple. I loved riding to the barn, standing on the tongue of the ball hitch on Hubert's tractor, watching bloody clods of mud spit off the treads of the red Massey Ferg into the dark as we drove all the leftover parts of the spring gilts he'd butchered over to the spigot to hose off before pouring them into the stainless vat set to a boil on an iron grate over the wood-fired stone pit, spelling one another when our arms wearied of pushing the wooden paddle through the simmering offal of hog, stoking the blaze with seasoned splits of ash and swamp maple, sleet pellets rattling hard against the metal roof while the blood-leached hearts and livers floated past again and again, bubbling up to the surface with the severed heads, then sinking back down under the paddle's blade as we stirred and stirred and stirred. Past the hour, the Guernseys knelt their great brown bodies down into heaps of straw, and the barn cats disappeared behind shadows. Fat, rich licks of steam rising past our sweating faces, following the pitch of the rafters into a cloud that rolled along the breadth of the wind bracing and dissipated into the dripping ridgeline, while the tender strips of flesh, soon to be strained, minced in the grinder and poured back into the spiced boil, slowly peeled away from hock and snout and bone. Gethsemane. When the disciple who loved him most unsheathed his sword and sliced off the centurion's ear, we all cheered and stomped the parquet floor in that February classroom, where the steam pipes pounded hard to fight the below zero air seeping past the wall of cracked windows. And the purple crosses we'd drawn, cut and pasted that Lenten morning, threw shadows over our desk, as Sister shushed us with a wave of her pointer and pushed ahead to Jesus, spending the last coin from his tattered purse of miracles, then ordered our shameful heads down on our desk after we hissed the return of the sword to the scabbard. All that surrender grinding again at my gut years later while I'm mudding in cabbages in my garden, maddened by a week of rain and the news out of Kabul, the stench of decay from another long winter. It's easy to see that bloodied ear on the ground, the pale lobe mushrooming through the twigs and bits of leaves, a fly stuck fast to the black clot, struggling before he breathed on it, passed his hand over the soldier's wound and gave himself up. This is one from Alaska Quarterly Review that was published a few years ago. The only thing you need to know here is I refer to the D&J bar. That was our family bar in Jersey City. Counting the draw at the D&J bar. My guess is he didn't want me to see it. That if my old man knew I'd finished stacking last night's empties, he would have kept it stashed beneath the fat wad of 20s near the back of the cash drawer. Never mind that it had no cylinder, no magazine, one chamber for one round. It was small enough to fit in the palm of his hand. And what my 12-year-old brain loved most was how the snubbed barrel gleamed from the red glow of his Chesterfield, and the pearled handle drew in the color from every neon sign over the bar back. Rheingold red, Pabst blue, Ballantine green. Even my old man's gold front tooth sharing some of its luster when he cocked his head to the side, slowly locked his fingers around the grip, and worked the action. My 4-year-old refuses to enter the shark tunnel at Adventure Aquarium Camden. The crowd streams around us as we stand rock still in the entranceway, seawater fanned by hidden blowers shimmering in wavelets over the thick glass tube. Clapping her ears shut, she tells me the tunnel music sounds like when bad stuff happens in the movies. Sharks, black-tipped, sand tigers, hammerhead, cruise out from the shadows of the foul reef, nosing the glass walls, swim overhead from tank to tank, then disappear. Tonight, she whispers in my ear, they'll eat us in their dreams. 2 more. The fox skull. My middle girl found it long after the crows had pecked the eyes, the gums, the supple stretch of tongue, after the palate and the fused cranial plates were licked clean by ants and left half hidden under the leaf fall our spaniel was snuffling through in a thicket near the high tension lines. My girl ran it home before her big brother and his friends could twist it away, shut herself in her room where she posed it on a silvery tray before the oval mirror of her white plastic vanity, next to her dried tubes of Playhouse makeup and last birthday crown, button-eye bears and limp-legged cats staring from her pillows as the spaniel quivered, his soft, wet black muzzle sniffing the air and yipping a shrill little want song to the girl, while the locked-out boys bounced their crazy dance outside her window, laughing wildly, screaming for what they wanted, chanting her name. And the last one will be Sing Along. This is the setting of this is all you need to know. It's in a rehab nursing home that my mom was in her last days. Sing along. just a few days before her last trip to the ER, after she'd given up bingo and picking up her phone and refused to get out of bed or leave her room, living on a few spoons of broth and packaged crackers she'd crushed with the side of her curled fist while they were still in their wrapper. I signed in at the desk and caught a flutter from the corner of the activities room, where a jazz trio was swinging through some 40s hits. My mother's hand in the air and waving me next to her as she sang along with the band. The choir voice she'd screamed away 30 years ago at my father's funeral, back again, strong enough that I could hear her over the thump of the stand-up bass, her fingers tapping the handrails of a wheelchair in rhythm with the drummer's brushing. Me, the silent one now, as she sang the words to song after song, stamping my foot and clapping along with the residents when the band started to wrap it up, all of us begging for a little encore at the end of the set. Thank you.